So.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to start this off. So tell me your name and your sobriety date.
Okay. Diana Browning, used to be Diana David, and my sobriety date is July 3rd, 1998. So started drinking at 12 and loved it immediately. I never had an in-between. There was never a drinking just because I liked the way it tasted. There was nothing. It was, I loved it, fell in love with it, and immediately started drinking every chance I got. So that time I was 13, I was drinking and smoking pot every single day. My older sister was who gave me my first drink, gave me my first joint. By 14, 15, garbage head. Just if you put it in front of me and said it would change the way I felt, I did it. I did a lot of drugs that I didn't like the way I felt on them. When I would get on, I'd say, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And then I would do it again. So there was insanity from the beginning. By the time I was 16, found what ultimately was my drug of choice that kind of took me down, which was heroin. By the time I was 18, I was shooting it daily. Eventually started selling it. Up until that point, I was able to go to school, hold a job, function. I was functional from 12 to 18. Once I started shooting dope, all bets were off. I was stealing from my parents, lost jobs, lost relationships, flunked out of 3 different colleges, and very quickly stopped being able to function. So I went to treatment for the first time at 18. Due to some charges I had gotten. And so that was the first time I was ever exposed to AA or sobriety, but I went to a 30-day program then. It didn't work. I really quickly learned how to just say the right things, but I had no desire to get sober. So like for me, drugs and alcohol was completely my solution on how to navigate life. So went to another 30-day program a few months later, about 9 months later. And then from that time until I ultimately ended up getting sober. It accelerated. I eventually, I was stealing from my parents, stealing from all of my friends. I was driving back and forth to the city, selling. I was doing a lot of things to get what I needed. And I eventually was living in my car. So at the end, not exactly sure how long it was somewhere maybe a month or 2 that I was living in my car with my drug dealer boyfriend. We were selling, and I ended up getting arrested. I just realized that, like, if it were not for drugs and alcohol, I would not be sitting in that jail cell. And that was really profound. That was ultimately going to jail was my bottom, but my parents had become aware of Willingway. The ultimatum my parents gave me, which really helped save my life, was that they would pay for my lawyer and help me fight the charges if I would stay at Willingway. If I didn't, I had nowhere to live. I was not welcome back in my home, and they would not pay for my lawyer. And so the fear of going to prison at that time, I was facing 10 years, and the fear of spending 10 years in prison kept me, not willingly, but not gracefully, I should say, not gracefully. I did everything wrong. I had a lot of other things. I was bulimic, I was a cutter, things like that, and I was still engaging in all of those behaviors, and I was miserable. And my counselor at the time said, since you're stuck here, why not try what we're telling you to do? If it doesn't work, you're no worse off. And I literally started taking suggestions to prove that it wasn't going to work. If they understood how I felt, that they would understand why I needed to get high. That was how it started, and I've been sober ever since for 25 years. So, yeah. People who can do it in 30 days, that's amazing. And the 30-day program, I'm sure, is great for people who are ready, but I needed to be physically removed from the possibility of getting high. I needed to not know where to get it, not know who to get it from, not have access to a car to go and get it, because I wanted to get high the first 6-8 months that I was there. Daily, hourly, until I hit a certain place where I finally started not wanting to get high every minute. So being physically removed and in a safe environment where I was going to meetings every single day. I will never forget when I was doing my intake into Willingway Hospital, the nurse, a woman named Rena, she did all the stuff, and I went in on Unit 1, and I want to say either that night or the next night, it was a speaker meeting, and Rena was the speaker. And I just remember being floored, like this woman who sat there, like she's giving me my meds, like she was a Unit 1 nurse, and she shared her life story, and she was just like me. And so they shared their own personal recovery along with their professional counseling, and that was really mind-blowing for me. That was very, very different. And the other thing was the exposure to speaker meetings, where I was able to hear their whole story from beginning to end and really get a chance to relate. Dr. Bobby was one who I heard his story and was like, oh my gosh, he said things that I thought. So the combination of those things, not being on medication, long-term, the fact that people that work in Willingway are in recovery and share their personal stories was so foreign. It was completely different from anything I'd ever been exposed to before. And I absolutely believe that made the difference. I still didn't really want to hear it, but at least I knew that they weren't just saying it because they went to school to become a counselor. Right. They said they were saying it because they'd been through it and lived through it. So. Oh my goodness, I could sit here and literally talk your ear off for the rest of the night. The biggest one is literally the ability to navigate life without having to get high. That's mind-blowing. When I got to Willingway, that was truly incomprehensible. And then the other one would absolutely be being able to be a sober mom. I've got 3 kids. I am 24/7 mom, and the fact that they have never seen me high, they've never known me high, but they also have grown up knowing what addiction is and knowing what recovery looks like, so that God forbid they end up, traveling down that path. The chances are they have 2 addict alcoholic parents, and so one of them, I'm sure, if not, a few of them, but the fact that they have gotten an opportunity to be raised seeing what sobriety looks like is amazing to me. That I've stayed sober this long. Hands down. It is never, I feel like I share every time I get a chip, every year that I pick up a chip, it is no less surprising than the first year of sobriety. If you had told me when I checked into Willingway that I was going to be sober for 25 years without putting any mood-altering chemicals in my system, there's no way I would have believed that. So just that I've been able to maintain sobriety for this long is mind-blowing for sure. And I think too lately, because this has been fairly recent, is being able to navigate life with minimal fear. So I didn't realize until I came to Willingway and experienced sobriety that my entire life had been controlled and run by fear. Truthfully, that got better in sobriety, but it's been incremental, and in the last year, it's improved by leaps and bounds. And then the other thing is just loving myself. I had suffered from depression my entire childhood, long before I ever put a chemical in my body, never had good self-esteem, was suicidal, and suffered from all of that. And in sobriety, I truly love myself, respect myself, feel worthy of sobriety and love and relationships and things like that. And I didn't have that when I got here.